Mall. We're going to have a blast. I know it's a kind of rainy fall day, but that's, as Alex would say, it would be the perfect day for our Café con Leche. So grab one from your favorite coffee shop. Mine is Guajiros right now. But I'm open to tasting all the coffee that there is in Charlottesville has to offer. And we're going to get rolling pretty soon as Judah gives us the go-ahead. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Today Mañana. I'm Nicholas Erpe, and with me is Greer Achenbach, the Executive Director of Friends of Sivo, new kind of local nonprofit, 501c3. I just want to give a quick thank you to our sponsors for today, GPS Financial Services, our good friend Johan Torres, my brother Miguel Corradine and Chick Craddock from Craddock Series Insurance, Aqua Seville Hand Car Wash, The Gym Seville, Castle Hill Cider, and yours truly, Emergent Financial Services. And I think we are ready to jump right in. I'm going to just let the audience know that because it is me and me alone today, if you have a comment, please make it on the Today Mañana page or Today Mañana group, because as I am the host for today, I have to monitor as few as possible to make sure I am present as a host and a monitor. So keep that in mind, and we'll just jump with the first question. Good morning, Greer. How are you doing?
Good morning, Nick. Thank you so much for having me here to talk with you this morning. I'm so thrilled to talk about Friends of Charlottesville downtown.
No, you're awesome. So we really love that you're able to come on. You have so much energy and passion. We figured it out like the first time I met you, and we had that coffee on the downtown mall to talk about Friends of Seville, and it was just really inspiring to see like how much energy you had to get Friends of Seville to contribute to our local economy and our local community.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to talk to you about kind of the work that we've already done and what we're hoping to do over the next year, the next 3 years, and then kind of our plans thereafter.
Awesome. All right. So the first question is, who is Greer, and how did she get involved with Friends of Sivo?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually came into Friends of Seville after it was already established as a nonprofit. So there was a group of individuals in the community that were interested in sort of Main Street revitalization and saw all the great things about downtown that it is and what it could be, and wanted to put together a private group to think about kind of strategies, whether that's policy or how to invest in the community. So they were doing some really exciting things before I came aboard. The most prominent example of that is wrapping the Landmark building with the music box, which many of you have probably seen. I started in May as the first executive director, and it was one of those opportunities that just kind of came at exactly the right time. I had been working at UVA for the Batten School of Leadership and Policy, and loved it there. I have wonderful things to say about the Batten School. I was working in fundraising, which was also a great fit for me, but I knew ultimately that I wanted to go into nonprofit and something entrepreneurial, and this kind of offered all of those things, and it let me be a part of the Charlottesville community and really make an impact that I could see here locally.
All right, so being a Wahoo is like the most important thing, I guess, if you're going to be part of Charlottesville scene, right? It's just...
Yeah. Oh, coming from UVA.
Yeah, I mean, being a UVA, I mean, it's great that you can just just personally, also being a UVA grad is just, it's nice that UVA takes its talent and then leaves it here in Charlottesville, so that we can use the intelligence and the passion that we developed at UVA and grow that here. So it's kind of interesting because so you had already wanted to work in a nonprofit that was entrepreneurial. And kind of Friends of Sivo came around kind of almost like the perfect time for that in a way.
I think so. So I always knew that I was getting this kind of incredible education working in fundraising at UVA. Right. And I always knew that I wanted to apply that skill to something else, probably nonprofit. But I sort of was vacillating between how I wanted to make an impact. Was that via government and policy? Right. I started my career as a state level lobbyist, or was it something more private sector and entrepreneurial. And this gives me the opportunity to work in all of those spaces and with a lot of really wonderful people in the community. So I'm loving it so far.
Has it been a big adjustment to sort of go from what you thought as a lobbyist to running a whole nonprofit where you have to kind of balance a lot of different opinions that can get very heated?
That's such a great question. So it is. I knew that it was going to be a big job and a big undertaking, and we are kind of taking baby steps towards some of those bigger goals. I think you hit the nail on the head. So the challenge is always with nonprofits are sort of a lack of resources, and then you have downtown Charlottesville is a place that is meant for so many different types of people and serves a lot of different needs. And so prioritizing some of those goals can be part of the challenge, but also part of the fun. And it's letting us think about how to make this a space in which all feel welcome and that there's kind of activity for everybody.
Awesome. So now, Friends of Sivo, can you give us a sort of like because it's new. I have a feeling a lot of our audience isn't necessarily 100% familiar with it. Don't really know who they are. I mean, the music on Main. So everyone who's watching the wrapping around the Dewberry Hotel, that was Friends of Sivo.
That's right.
Who initiated that whole process. But I think since then, can you give us a picture of like who Friends of Sivo is and what is like the mission, like what's the goal, so that like our audience can know like what is the
what are we trying to achieve?
Yes,
so,
exactly.
So it is a broad mission. Overarching, I would say it is to make downtown a more vibrant and inviting place, and that takes a lot of different forms, which I would love to kind of talk through. We are a Main Street organization, so my kind of overarching goals are that we have a thriving economy, a lively atmosphere, and a welcoming environment. And I'd love to sort of break down what we're doing in all of those spaces. We're really lucky to have such great support from our initial founders, and we kind of have the funding for a couple of years and just a lot of enthusiasm for our initial vision.
Awesome! Wow, you're very. You have everything all under control. Well, that's because you just released the strategic vision, right? I mean, that was your first kind of like step as an executive director, right? I
did, yes, at our September board meeting, and I encourage everyone that's listening to get on our newsletter. So you can follow us on social media at Friends of Sivo, and from there you can sign up for our newsletter. I also would encourage everyone to become a friend. Individual memberships are only $10, and business memberships are $200. And they come with a lot of great perks. So individual members, you're going to get a month free at the vault, volunteer opportunities, opportunity to have your voice heard, and for businesses, a lot of marketing opportunities. But I cut you off. What was your
No, that's great. That's what we wanted to hear. It's sort of like, okay, so there's now a way for everyone who's listening to get engaged, to get involved, and there are business perks for businesses to joining. And I think there's a lot of downtown businesses that are sort of like that might be hesitant just because lots of government entities tend to drag their feet. So one of the things is like, what can Friends of Sivo do differently than maybe the city can do or previous nonprofits have done? Is there an opportunity for
Absolutely. I'm so glad you asked me that question, and it really kind of builds on our earlier conversation a couple of weeks ago. So we do work hand in hand with the city, and I always think that the city is doing great things. It is harder for government to move, and we are an entrepreneurial organization that really is the champion for downtown revitalization. So some things we are doing private funding, and some things we're working closely with the city on because it really falls in their purview, whether that's kind of encouragement of maintenance and infrastructure projects or permitting for events we might want to have downtown. We're working right now on a lighting plan for downtown, talking about seating and benches, bathrooms. All of those things are things that we work closely with the city on.
Now, the only other thing I was going to say is that when we had this discussion earlier, right, one of the things that I thought struck out to me was the fact that we talk about downtown as the downtown mall, right? But I remember when I first met Michael Kaplan, who's, if I'm correct, he started Friends of Seaville?
He is one of our founders, yes.
Yes, okay. And then when I followed up the conversation with you, you both had a vision for downtown and like for Friends of Seaville, not just looking at the mall, but looking even beyond that would stretch to areas that would, I guess, even include something like Guajiros near the Amtrak.
That's right.
Right. So give us a sense of like, are the goals right now like what you're talking about with the lighting and all and the benching areas? Like, is that downtown mall? Are we still looking at downtown as a more homogeneous, wider area?
I'm so glad you brought that up so that I didn't forget to say it. So that is a big part of my vision, is that I think we need to think about downtown as having a bigger footprint. It's better for the community and for the economy if we think of it that way. And so we're really thinking about ways to expand past what is just on the bricks. And so that's really all the way out to UVA, so all the way down West Main, and then down Preston kind of to Dairy Market. And eventually kind of over to Ix and then down towards Belmont. So it's 10 square miles in the city. And we're really excited about getting a lot of our, kind of expanding our membership and getting a lot of more of those businesses involved that are in places like farther down West Main by Amtrak.
So, because that's interesting because it's, I mean, actually, my wife and I were at South and Central yesterday for their $10 steaks. Yeah, it's amazing. And Chef Calvino is just phenomenal. I mean, the guy works so hard. Yesterday, I was like looking through the window and he's like chopping wood with a mini axe just to get our steaks on the fire. Love that place. But it was one of those interesting things is that you still, just driving there, it doesn't feel like you're going downtown. It feels like a separate chunk.
I know.
So how do we get, I guess, is there a vision yet of how we can make, I guess, increase walkability or like a sense of a homogeneous downtown for places like that? Because it just feels like, I think like it's a lot of times like when we talk about, I guess my wife and I or my family and I sort of like, where do you want to go? It's sort of like, well, we could go downtown or we could go to the Dairy Market or we could go to X, you know, and they're all downtown. So I guess, is there a vision of how that can be achieved, or is that something that you need to work with the businesses right now? Like we kind of just need to get energy, like feet on the ground.
So it's kind of in two parts. So the larger picture, of course, is bigger things like transportation in our city or sidewalks and infrastructure and lighting and these things that really tie those places together. In the short term, kind of in the immediate, like for instance, I'm thinking about the upcoming holidays. How do we create what we're doing and kind of expand that? So looking at even how we place holiday decorations, that those things don't stop right at the end of the mall, that they go sort of down West Main or down Preston. We also have a number of kind of holiday initiatives coming up that I am hoping to get some of those businesses involved in. So you just mentioned South and Central. One thing we're doing. Our whole holiday series is just sort of this holiday magic. And one of the things we're doing is a peppermint trail. So I would love to get South and Central to do some sort of peppermint themed cocktail as part of that. We will be featuring all the different cocktails on our website.
That's cool.
And cocktails or coffee. I mean, these are kind of, and it really doesn't even have to be peppermint. It could be some other, but we're going to be featuring them at all the different restaurants so that you could come down and try them all.
And you're calling it the Peppermint Trail?
The Peppermint Trail.
I like that. Well, actually, just yesterday they had a specialty cocktail for Women's Month for breast cancer awareness, and like every dollar was going to the women's breast care. So it was beautiful.
At South and Central?
Yeah, at South and Central.
Oh,
it was wonderful. Yeah, it was a pink drink. It was wonderful. So it was great just to see like that they're willing to participate. But I was just thinking right now, imagine the Guajiros Cafe con Leche with peppermint in it. I was just like,
see, that's
that
fantastic.
Would be, yeah, I mean, we could talk to Harvey if you're listening. Either
Harvey, I need your contact info.
Yeah, let's make it happen. But I mean, those are great ideas that you're initiating. So I guess here's the thing: is like, would that be how do we get more people to be aware that this is happening? Is that just going to be involvement through the newsletter? Are there going to be advertisements on the downtown mall? Is that something you're allowed to do? Or how does that work?
When you say advertisements on the downtown mall, do you mean?
Like, because I know that a lot of people put out the blackboards. Mm-hmm. That was my first thought, was like there's blackboards. But I guess how do we like let people know that these things are happening so that we can create it? Because I mean, tourists coming to town, how would they know? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's my first thought, is that like you want to create energy of or reason for tourists to go places during certain times, festivals, right? I mean, that's an obvious one. I know, like, my friends in Richmond are like, yeah, there's a folk festival coming up. Come to Richmond. So how do we get the sense of, there's a peppermint trail going on during the holidays? Come to Charlottesville.
So that is just one of the things we're doing during the holidays, and hopefully we'll have the chance to kind of talk through all of them. But we are working with Courtney at the Convention and Visitors Bureau about how do we think about tourists in that sense and drive them downtown, and instead of people just coming. Of course, I love that they're coming to UVA, but we don't want them just to come to UVA and leave. We want them to come downtown as well, as downtown is certainly a jewel. Obviously, we're trying to do a lot more social media marketing, and then really exploring kind of what opportunities we have in the community for traditional media and advertising.
Awesome. We love Courtney. She's been on the show. She was a real help to a lot of small businesses that don't realize all the things that the Bureau has to offer. We have a guest comment from Xavier Erpy, great guest, and the topic is key to the success of small business in Sivo. Thank you, Xavier Erpy. I wish I could say that we miss you on this set, but yeah, Judah might miss you. Maybe. He smiled a little bit, so maybe not. So, I mean, I know we were going to talk about what Friends has done already, but since we're on the topic, so we've already talked a little bit of, like, certain plan. There's another big plan coming up for the holidays. Is that something you can share on the show?
Yeah, sure. Okay,
perfect. Let's go for it, because I think it's a really exciting idea, and I loved it when it was first pitched, so go for it.
This is just about the holidays?
Yeah, there was a holiday one, right? That was one of the three main ones?
Yes.
Okay.
So, well, we can kind of talk through our larger goals, but as I mentioned, kind of in creating a lively atmosphere, we want to have things that are bringing people downtown.
Right.
And that kind of really ties back into how are we getting the word out, is we hope some of these things will allow us to do some data collection and really get our name in front of people. So we're doing something called Holiday Magic on the Mall, and even though I'm calling it on the Mall, I really do mean all of downtown.
Right.
And so involved in that, from Thanksgiving through Christmas, we will have Santa every Saturday on the mall. On Saturday and Sunday, we will have a Holly Trolley for children and adults that will be running on the downtown mall from 12 to 4. We are doing the Peppermint Trail, which I just talked about. There will be peppermint and holiday-themed drinks at many of our restaurants throughout downtown. And then we're doing something called Elves in Sivo. It's an elf on the shelf scavenger hunt. There will be elves at many of our stores downtown. You can pick up a North Pole pass for your children at Charlottesville Insider with stamps, and they can find all the elves and win raffle prizes for finding them all downtown.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
So there's a lot of things going, and now there was also a skate rink, correct?
That's not this year.
That's not this year. Okay.
I would love to, in kind of one of my future goals, I would love to see sort of a pop-up holiday rink as part of our downtown holiday adventures. We are also having a number of live performances. Those will be on Sundays at 2 p.m. So
okay, wow.
Mark your calendars for that time between Thanksgiving and New Year's. There's going to be a lot to do downtown.
Elizabeth says, what a fun idea, and such a good idea to get more people to come to downtown more frequently, especially like the families, right? Because that's really the goal, is that, right? Having a more family-friendly environment. Mm-hmm. Now, part of that also is going to be, lighting, I think, goes into that as well, because of the fact that it did always feel dark beforehand in Charlottesville. It's sort of like the downtown. Like, once the stores are dead, it feels like the whole mall was dead. But we're also looking to change that in the future, correct? I mean, is that...
Absolutely. So we were supposed to talk about the lighting plan today, although it's sort of bad weather outside, so I think it's getting delayed till next week. We'll walk the mall.
Right.
We are obviously thinking about lighting for the holidays and
Correct.
Holiday decorations, and how we can kind of expand that down the mall and into other places, but more generally thinking about the lighting plan for the mall all year round.
Right.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I have been thinking a lot about how to make the mall a family-friendly pace. It is a public park, and we want to make sure that families feel comfortable and that there's things for them to do when they come downtown.
Now, is there a way to get the lighting and all that to be... So I guess that always felt like something that, like, the city does, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you always feel like, well, does the city do a good job and stuff? But is it something that the Friends of Sivo can actually, like, take over and just be like, can we put lighting that connects that you could walk from Guajiros to Ixart Park, right? I know the camera can't get my arms going that wide. Sorry, Judah. But I guess it's this much. Can you get like something spread out that far such that you really, because like if you could do that, it would be true in the sense that you'd feel like this is more of a one whole place that you could connect, because it's not that far, if I'm correct, to walk.
No, not at all. I
mean,
100%
it's very
agree
easy,
with
walkable.
you. I think that is likely to be a partnership, which it's kind of that true public-private partnership between
Right.
Friends and the city. We would love to be the arm that's doing private fundraising that can help make that happen, and
Right.
that can facilitate and support the city in any way to make sure that those kind of
Right.
infrastructure things are available. I mean, the same can be said for, we're working right now to have public restroom options available on the downtown mall.
Right. Because I remember I was at the one bridal salon recently, or near around
Right.
there, for
On Main Street.
unspecified reasons. But I remember I was dropping off my wife, and I was looking, and the whole area is really nice. And I was thinking to myself, this isn't not it reminded me a lot of when I've taken trips to other more, how do I say this, larger cities in the U.S. like Charleston and Savannah, where there was this real ability to walk everywhere. I remember you were originally from Savannah, right? Or not originally, but you've been there, or you lived there for a while. Did you find it walkable?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Judah said
Very.
yes. Sorry, I'm throwing him on, just bringing him. But like, it's very walkable, right? And you have this sense of like there are all these little businesses along the way that you can just stop off at. And I remember looking around, and it's like it could feel this way, especially like where Feast is, where Tavern and Grocery is, then all the way up to Guajiros. Is there a sense that there's a parking problem as well? Because the parking is sort of like, it kind of bookends the mall, so you tend to like go to Market Street or you go to Water Street and you're just like at the mall and then you stop there. But is that part of the problem we're having, do you feel, with Charlottesville?
That is such a great point, Nick. And to be very honest, I had not even thought about that as the parking being part of the connectivity issue.
It popped into my head just now. I'm sorry.
No, I'm so glad that you brought
questioning.
it up. I think these are things that I love to kind of sit and brainstorm about what we could do.
Right.
If people that are listening and watching, make sure that you're kind of reaching out to info@friendsofseville.org if you
Right.
have kind of thoughts on this medium and long-term strategic planning for the city and how we could make these things better. It's something we're very interested in doing, is coming up with a strategic plan about areas of focus,
Right.
particularly about things like that.
Yeah. So also another reminder: if you're watching right now, please comment in the Today Mañana group or in the. Actually, we do have a walk score from Neil. Thank you, Neil Williamson, King of Content. Is that his moniker, Jerry? King of Content. Yes. Thank you, Neil Williamson. I'm going to tag Greer in this so that she can see it later when we are off the show.
Hi, Neil. We just got back from a trip to Greenville together with the chamber last week.
Awesome. So thank you for watching, Neil, today. And if anyone else is watching, again, please comment on the Jerry Miller's, on the I Love Sivo group or the Today Mañana group, because those are the ones I am monitoring today, because it's just me. And I know Johnny Ornelas might be watching. Johnny, if you're watching and you have something to say, you're a leader in the Hispanic community, so make sure you reach out. Did I interrupt you on something?
No. I was just kind of looking for an appropriate time to kind of talk about some of the things we've done and are hoping to do.
So, next thing is, okay, so we have the short-term plans. Are there any other short-term goals that Friends of Seville has that you'd want people to be aware that is Friends of Seville happening?
Absolutely. So in my 1-year plan, like I said, there's 3 buckets. So in Thriving Economy, we want to support and do additional marketing for all of our business members. We also have the Downtown Gift Card Program, which I would encourage all businesses to be a part of. We're getting a lot of big contracts and conferences coming in that want to buy gift cards for their participants to use while they're here. So I would definitely encourage that. In terms of lively atmosphere, I mentioned a lot of the holiday events we're doing. We're also supporting some of the Halloween events happening downtown, like doggy Doggy Halloween, which is happening, which is sponsored by Paw Prints on the mall, and obviously supporting Downtown Safe Halloween, which is spearheaded by the city. We also have some just kind of placemaking initiatives that we're working on. We're trying to have live music and art constantly on the mall. So this fall we had a jazz trio that was on the mall every Saturday. This past weekend we had a guy named Milo who was playing music for us on the mall. We're working right now on a historic downtown walking tour that I'm really excited about, that will involve QR codes that will tell you the history of some of the different buildings downtown.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And then lastly, we're kind of working on a welcoming environment. So that's beautification and aesthetics. We just partnered with the United Way to do a mural down there, just farther down Market Street, near Luce and Common House. We are, obviously we mentioned that we're working on accessibility and safety. We've been working closely with the police to figure out how to improve safety and lighting and some of those things that we talked about. And then infrastructure improvement. We're working on increased maintenance. We have a plan for a pocket park coming this spring, as well as a flower competition for some of the businesses, just to continually beautify the space.
Wow, okay, so that's lovely. So there's a lot that's going on. And there's a lot of business, how do you say that, business involvement. So here's a question. So like for the downtown mall, because I think there's this sense that it's been struggling. Mm-hmm. What is it doing correctly right now, in your opinion? Like what is that you look at the downtown mall as it is now and say, I don't want that, I don't want to change this?
Oh, what a great way to phrase that question. So the thing I love most about Charlottesville and about downtown is that it is so organic. You don't feel like this is this sort of rubber stamped development that came in. There's a lot of character.
Right.
I love the local businesses. We're seeing a really good mix right now, kind of new business owners with a lot of enthusiasm and people that have been here a long time that have that kind of institutional history. So I love to see that. I'm so inspired by the enthusiasm that we have for Friends of Charlottesville and the things that we can do together.
Perfect answer. Wow. So that's the key right there, is like organic. So here's the thing though, when you have something that is organic, right, and there's not a macro planning to it, obviously there can be externalities or like things that are missing. What do you think is one of the because I think we actually had this discussion when we met for coffee before the strategic planning, is what do you feel is missing that the downtown mall could do better, or something that could change the dynamic on the downtown mall?
So I think about this a lot. I would love to see increased diversity in who we have coming to the downtown mall.
Okay.
And when I say that, I mean that in kind of lots of different ways, whether that's race and ethnicity, or whether that's age, or just based on interests.
Right.
So I see a lot of teenagers on the mall, and you see young professionals. I would love to see more activities for families. More kind of accessibility for our retirees. There are some challenges, but I think there's great opportunity for walking groups and tours and things like that. We mentioned tourism, so those are some things and you and I had talked previously about the Hispanic community and the ways that they might feel more welcome coming downtown. So I would love to kind of think about those as well.
Right. No, that's a big, because especially the Hispanic community is growing. I mean, I think now shout out to Ricardo Cruz Duran, who's trying to get a NAREP chapter to be centered here. That's the National Association Hispanic Realtors I think it's partnership. Can't remember what the P stands for. But there's a sense that Charlottesville could be the center for Hispanics and Hispanic service people, Hispanic businesses, and we'd like to really make that happen. So it's great that you bring that up, because that's going to be really important. Is this really a place where Hispanics are just going to start entering the local economy, especially because I mean, I think it's fair, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's fair to still see downtown, especially the mall, as the heart of Charlottesville.
I do.
Yeah, I mean, so it's one of those things that if we're trying to make sure that the heart is enlivened and welcoming, it should be a place where, especially like the Hispanic network of individuals should be not only comfortable going, but like should have as their center as well. See what I'm saying? So I think it's interesting that you say that. Actually, I actually had a question from Jerry Miller, who just loaded up on me. Which is a great question. How is technology and social media a part of your plans for Friends of Sivo? How are we going to utilize, or how does that enter the picture?
Mm-hmm. So I welcome Jerry's advice. We were talking a little bit off camera because it's something I think a lot about as we're absolutely in that friend raising stage where we need to be doing a lot of marketing and a lot of just awareness. I want people in Charlottesville to know what our mission is and what we're doing and how they can get involved. We have a pretty large Facebook following with about 20,000 people. Right. Not as much on Instagram and Twitter. I hope that you will go and follow us there. We are working to kind of form relationships with other local influencers in the community that are interested in our work and that want to partner. Which actually that brings me to kind of another part of our strategy is we want to accomplish so much, and we can't do it all on our own.
Right.
There's so many other businesses and nonprofits and government entities in the city that we are hoping to partner with. So it was such a great experience partnering with United Way on that mural. I would love to do that, to continue to do that. I mean, in local businesses too, we're working with Alakazam, the toy store on the mall, on some of our holiday initiatives. So any opportunity we have to partner or to kind of sponsor people that want to come and do things that bring vitality to the mall, we would love those. Welcome that.
Now, obviously, a lot of it is also is funding, right? Fundraising. But so are you comfortable highlighting some of the stakeholders of Friends of Sivo, some of the people that have been already contributing? Because I think it's fair to give them a shout out because they've actually put in a lot of their own personal funding, personal money to make these things happen.
Yes, I would love to. And you put me a little on the spot, so I hope I don't forget any.
No,
they're
absolutely.
not all written down. But so our initial founding executive board, Michael Kaplan, who you mentioned, Ludwig Kutner, Joan Fenton at Chris Henry at the Dairy Market, Ted Ukrop at the Quark, Mark Horgan Construction. They've been absolutely fantastic and supportive.
Oh, wonderful.
Blair Williamson, Ethel Williamson and Magpie, she's fantastic. And how many did I just name? I'm going to feel awful if I haven't pointed out one of our early founders.
We'll give them a shout out at the end of the show if you remember them later on. But that's wonderful because all these people, from what I'm hearing, I mean, I'm familiar with most of their names. Mm-hmm. They're
Hunter Craig. Don't want to forget Hunter
Craig. Oh yeah, no, Hunter Craig is a fun guy. They're important to Charlottesville. Like they're not like people that are coming from out. They're Charlottesville, Charlottesvillians. Like they're here and they're making an impact. I mean, you just mentioned the Dairy Market. Like that's
Keith
important.
Woodard, that was one I forgot too. He's
Woodard.
also fantastic.
Oh yeah, no, Keith has been a good friend of actually Fort Adelante for a while. The Fort Adelante Business Alliance, which I forgot to mention, is one of our sponsors. Fort Adelante the premier Latino networking group in Charlottesville. If Alex is watching, he will make sure that I will make sure to remind him that since he's the president, that I remembered to mention them. But that's also important to recognize is that there's private money going into this to make this happen, right? So I guess sort of what is the process of taking private money, the business involvement, and connecting it with the public side in the city and trying to make something happen? Because it sounds very simple when we phrase it like that, right? A public-private partnership. But you and I both know, and I think all the audience is sort of like scratching their head because we know that that's not easy.
Right.
So is there a process for that, making that happen? Like, is the city and are all, right now, is it just at a phase where everyone is very compliant because anything getting done is better than nothing getting done? Or is there a process where there needs to be some give and take?
So that's a very astute question as well. And before I forget, I did forget to mention Charlie Lewis, who would not even want me to mention him, but he's so fantastic over at York Properties and has been such an advocate for us. Your question about how do we make all that work? How do we work all together when there's so many kind of different voices and interests? I think it's been, of course, there are challenges, but I think it's been going really well so far. I have felt great support from the city and everybody that I have worked with thus far in economic development and Parks and Rec, in the city manager's office. they want downtown to thrive, and are willing to work with us to make that happen. Obviously, the government has its own challenges and understaffed and under-resources like kind of everyone, but they're willing and they're excited about. They're not competitive with us. They want to work together.
Right.
So that's really great. And then ask me that first part of that question again, how to take private funding.
Yeah, well, sort of like taking the business involvement and the city side, and like, is there a disconnect? Or do you have to compromise because of the fact that the goals and I guess the priorities of private funding, businesses, and city are not always going to align? Like, has that been a challenge so far? And do you foresee that being a challenge in the future?
So I think everybody is kind of has the same goals in mind. We have a pretty broad vision. So
right.
It's not just about supporting. While it is a big part, we do not exist solely to support the businesses on the downtown mall. We are also thinking about our patrons and our tourists and the community that uses the mall. And so that really helps to kind of think about that greatest good. The initial founders were so fantastic in kind of providing the seed funding. So we have 2 years of covering our operational costs, and then our funding model will be some mix of membership dues as well as grants, and some private philanthropy, and maybe some other things we're still kind of working through.
Yeah. Well, because it is a very new organization, so there's probably a lot that gets juggled around. Now, is there a number of volunteers already working for Friends of Sivo? Because I know that all the work, it sounds like there's so much that's going on. I know that there must be some boots on the ground type. Am I right?
There are.
Yeah, okay.
I have some very involved volunteers, of which
Okay.
I could not do it without. Many of them are those initial founders that I mentioned before.
Right.
We also had a cabinet of advisors on different subjects, public health and safety, economic development, beautification, infrastructure,
Right.
and they have been absolutely crucial in making things happen. Susan Krischel and Susan Payne, and they have been really, really, really helpful, and we could not do that without them. I would also, if anyone is interested, please reach out to us. We are always looking for more volunteers to enact this plan.
And how do they reach out to you? Because that was my next question: is how does somebody get involved?
So you can email us directly at info@friendsofseville.org, or you can email me at greer@friendsofseville.org. Obviously, we just mentioned all of our social media channels and getting on our newsletter distribution list, all of which you should be able to do on our website.
Perfect.
friendsofseville.org.
There you go. Friends of Sivo, I'll go check it out. Another question for you. So I remember last time we talked a little bit of how there's a lot of music. There's some music on the downtown mall, and with the live music that's helping. There's a lot of restaurants, right? I think we have the highest restaurant per capita in the country for a city, and I'm sure Neil Williamson will correct me if I'm wrong on that, and he's more than welcome to do so, because I always prefer to be accurate. But there's also this sense that so I'm thinking Violet Crown, and there's the escape room, but there's not a lot of, how do I say this, like interactable events that you can do on the downtown mall. Is that something that, I know that's difficult to do, right? Because you can't just create a business as a nonprofit. But is there a way of making that happen, do you see? Well, first of all, do you see this as a problem, as something that the downtown mall could benefit from, having more interactable businesses that could provide a different kind of experience other than food? And B, is it possible that Friends of Sivo can make that happen in some way?
So, yes, me personally, I do. I completely agree with you. I love activities and different things to do like that. I'm thrilled that we have so many restaurants, but we want to be seen as the arts and entertainment district in Charlottesville,
right.
and so we can work on the arts, and we kind of need some partners to help us with that entertainment. We mentioned that we're doing a lot more events and some of those pop-up things, and
right.
I do encourage you to sort of pay attention to what's happening, but I know that that's not always how people's schedules work, and that you've got friends in town and you want to come down and do something fun. So
right.
I hope that we can work. That's probably a little bit outside of our scope,
right.
but I do want to make it downtown a place where businesses want to come.
Right.
And so focusing on how do we create an environment that's pro-business and where something like that would be successful. So that's thinking about transportation and parking and cleanliness and sanitation and what is it like outside when people want to come down to your business. And then I'd love to work with our friends over in economic development to try to attract some of those businesses to Charlottesville.
So Neil Williamson did correct me. Charlottesville foodies have more options to eat out than most cities in the country. Charlottesville ranks 14th on the Huffington Post list of the 15 cities with the most restaurants per capita. So okay, the website based its list on numbers from an annual restaurant tracking survey. The rankings find Charlottesville has 22 restaurants for every 10,000 people. So thank you, Neil.
Wow.
I was wrong. It's not number 1, but it is in the top 15. The number always sounded wrong to me, but it is on the top 15 because we have a lot of restaurants. And again, that's a great thing, but I also think that having a little diversity and experience is good. Now, here's a great question from my good friend Kevin Higgins. Kevin says, is there another city you model in your goal to make Seville downtown what it can be? I really like that question, Kevin.
I do too, Kevin.
Throwing it to
I have a lot of cities that I am using as models right now. I hope nobody disagrees with me as I throw these out. So some of the cities that I looked at and am looking at and emulating, we just went to Greenville with the chamber. That was one I really wanted to see. Okay. I've been looking a lot at Knoxville, Tennessee, which is a little bit bigger, but they're kind of also a college town and have done some neat things with their Main Street. In Virginia, I really like some of the things that they're doing in Lynchburg. Obviously, that's smaller. But there are some neat things I'd love to emulate, like especially what they're doing with the arts. And I welcome kind of ideas. Obviously, I have not been everywhere, and so if you have cities that you love or that you think are doing great things, please send them my way. We are kind of starting our involvement with Main Street America and Virginia Main Street, which offers a tremendous amount of resources and grant dollars and that idea sharing. That's really helpful.
All right. So if you have any follow-up questions or Kevin, please shout out because you always provide such great questions. That was a good one. I have to admit, personally, I did love Charleston and Savannah. I thought there was a sense of just like Savannah, especially just because it was the expansiveness of it. I mean, they had designed it beautifully such that there was like a park every block or something. Like there was a small square every block. So like it was built very gridly, it was built into a grid. It was designed very well. There were those giant willow trees everywhere. So it was very green, very lush, very walkable. And everywhere you went, there was a combination of business. I remember seeing there was old bookstores, there was restaurants, there were things to do for a lot of people. It was a really welcoming, just you could walk forever type of place. And Charleston was to the same degree very similar. And it was interesting in those places only because they were able to mix residential with business. So like there would be like little business areas and then there'd be residents around them, and then you'd have to go through them to get to the businesses. But all the houses were, very old fashioned. So like you felt like you were, and especially in Charleston they had, and Alex loved this. He actually wants to put it on his house one day, is they had, every single house had like a lamp on it that was either gas powered or electric. It had like a little flickering flame. So like there was almost like a signature style. So I just throwing that out there. I know it's a little hard to do now because we can't just like tear down the city and then rebuild it. But it was a very interesting concept that early on they had been thinking about how to lay out the city. But one thing I thought was interesting was the idea that Charleston had an indoor market. And I remember Keith Smith I'm getting Keith in trouble, and I love you, Keith, but he had mentioned that somebody had wanted to turn Water Street Garage into an indoor market, and I thought that would have been a phenomenal idea. So I mean,
wow.
there's lots of different. When we're talking about like city models, there's a lot of different things you can do. There's a lot of cities that have kind of like solved problems, like on their micro and macro scale. But I think the issue here is that since Charleston is already built, you have to do it on a more micro scale. Mm-hmm. Is that correct?
I don't know. I think so. I would love to do some kind of surveying and focus groups of the city. I mentioned kind of early in our interview that we are thinking about strategic planning, and I think Friends of Charlottesville Downtown can be a major player as we, Charlottesville, think about what we want to look like in the next let's call it 10 years, right? Or we want to focus on being more green, on having, on how do we design kind of how we live and play and work.
Right.
And all of those things are not something that Friends of Charlottesville can take on by ourselves, but there's lots of groups in the community that are. And so we would love to be part of those conversations. And
so part of the goal is also partnering with other nonprofits, correct? Right.
Absolutely.
To make sure that you're not necessarily like grinding on the same, or how do you say, like you're not both trying to accomplish the same thing at the same time when it could just be done easier if you work together. That would be putting it properly, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we see that there's a lot of great work being done, and sometimes it's happening in silos. And so I think I see Friends of Charlottesville as a place that can be a convener for a lot of those things and build those relationships. One thing that's important to me is coming from the University of Virginia. We'd love to see some kind of greater partnerships between downtown and the university, whether that means kind of increased transportation or just designing to bring down students and parents downtown, because we have so much to offer.
Right. I mean, it does get busy around graduate season. Graduation, yes. Yeah, where everyone's booking and you can't find a restaurant. But
right, or hotel space.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just the hotel space is another problem. I just remember for my wedding this year, it was just sort of like we couldn't block. We actually did not end up blocking a hotel because there was not a single hotel that would allow us to block. So my poor family coming from New York had to scramble around looking for that. So is that something that, because I know there's always talk about the Dewberry. The hotel that didn't happen, that the ghost still, the specter still haunts it, although a lot less so now because of the Music Box on Main, which was just a brilliant idea to at least get things going on one end, which was the thing actually that really impressed me about Friends of Sivo to begin with. But is hotel space something else that we're trying to consider with Friends of Sivo? Like, because if we do increase traffic, where are they going to stay? Yeah, where are they going to stay?
Right. I would say for this first year, that's probably a little outside my scope of what I think is possible for us. That's not to say that I would not welcome the opportunity, again, for partnership with developers and hotelers that want to come. And that would be fantastic. I'm always amazed at being such a wedding destination that we don't have more hotel options here.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so I don't want to get too far down the line because there's actually time is flying, but I also wanted to make sure that we actually talked about the things that Friends of Sivo has already done, because I want people who have been to the downtown mall to recognize the work that you've put in to make things happen. So if you have a small little list of the things, because I know some of them, but like I want everyone to recognize that Friends of Sivo is not just trying to do things in the future, but has already accomplished a lot that has made Charlottesville a nicer place. So to walk, especially the downtown mall, to walk around in. So would you like to, if you have a couple things?
I have a couple. And again, I would encourage you all to kind of come to our website to make sure that you read all of them, because there's constantly things happening, and we're very proud of the kind of the momentum that we're building. So a couple of the big things that we're doing is obviously wrapping the Dewberry was a huge early accomplishment and very focused. So that was a big impact. We also had the bistro lighting that was added to the middle of the downtown mall. And we've been working a lot kind of recently on just more vitality and entertainment. So I mentioned the jazz concert trio that was happening all fall, and some of the music and arts that we're bringing downtown, as well as the mural that we just did with the United Way. And a lot more of that stuff coming up. So as I mentioned, I've been here about 6 months. A lot of the work that I've been doing so far is kind of relationship building and setting up infrastructure. So one of the biggest things that Friends of Charlottesville has done is I think that we have a full-time staff that's thinking about these things. I mean, I wake up every morning thinking about what are we going to do downtown, and our operations manager Hannah is doing the same and working really hard. So we've got a lot of plans in place, and please stay tuned, because I think you're gonna see a lot of exciting announcements coming in the next couple of months.
Awesome. All right, so we have the holiday thing coming up. Is there anything else coming up short term within the next year that we can look forward to from Friends of Sivo? that you can say on air?
Yeah, that
Excuse
I can
me.
say. So I would say follow our newsletter because there's some things I can't say.
Okay.
But in terms of the events, we did talk about the kind of the 5 different things happening around the holidays. There's going to be live performances, Santa and the Holly Trolley and the Elves in Seaville and the Peppermint Trail. Please participate in all of those things. And businesses, I hope that you will be involved and that you will kind of join us in this mission because we can't do it without the support of the business or the involvement of the businesses.
Right.
But yeah, just kind of stay tuned. And then obviously around Halloween, there's a couple of things happening downtown that we hope that you'll support. Bring your dogs out for the costume contest and to get some treats, and bring your kids for Downtown Safe Halloween.
There you go. So that's a couple things that we've gone through, and we're now. Is there I know this is we can't really predict too far into the future, but thinking 3 to 5 years out, are there goals that Friends of Seaville has that are a little bit more ambitious that we can hope for a little bit more?
So we've touched on them a little bit broadly. Right. As we've talked about transportation and lighting, I think those are really big things, as well as seating. So seating and accessibility are big goals of ours. Obviously, we can't not mention that they're the unhoused population on the mall and how to provide the best services for them and make downtown a place that everybody feels safe coming. So we are hoping to work with some partners on those kind of challenges that come with the city.
Right.
But yeah, so I would encourage all of you to go and take a look at our 3-year strategic plan and our 1-year operational plan, which are in the newsletter. I will make sure that they are posted to the website and our Facebook channel right after this as well, so that you can take a look at them.
Perfect. Now, a quick question for you as regards the city. Has the city actually been very helpful and communicative on this issue, on being with Friends of Seaville?
In general? In
general, and then focusing more on the unhoused population, as you mentioned. Is that something that's come up in discussion yet?
So yes and yes. In general, very supportive. George Sandridge with the Office of Economic Development is our kind of community liaison, so he attends all of our meetings, and it is just a fantastic resource for me as I navigate as I'm learning as well, whether the different rules of permitting and the logistics of everything that you're trying to do downtown. And to your second question with the unhoused population, absolutely, it's a very complicated issue that I have some ideas on, but I know that there were people that have spent a lot more time thinking about and working on than I have. So I hope that we will make some strides on that in the next year to 3 years.
Okay, perfect. That's what we want to hear, and I think it's good to hear because Charlottesville, unfortunately, has had a bit of a history of a dysfunctional city government for a long while, and to hear that the city is actually working with a group that is determined and has already made accomplishments with downtown is good to hear, and I think a lot of Charlottesville residents and Albemarle County residents would be well served to hear that. So thank you.
Yes, thank you to Michael Rogers and everybody on that team.
Oh, here's another interesting question from Kevin Higgins. How can downtown attract more corporate conventions, and do we want that?
So from our perspective right now, yes, we want that because it's good for the businesses. So these kind of conferences I mentioned earlier have been buying some of our downtown gift cards to be spent downtown with the merchants that take them. So I see that as a good thing, and I hope that the businesses do as well. I know that they probably benefit some businesses more than others. And to your earlier question, it's kind of do we have the hotel space? So I hope that they're coming to downtown Charlottesville as opposed to another city because we have so much here to offer. Downtown is a jewel, and obviously we have a lot of other great things happening in Charlottesville with the vineyards or the historical sites.
Well, for me to answer that question, I would say, Kevin, yes, but it also depends, right? If we're getting corporate conventions that are looking into like moving headquarters here, it also depends on what kind of future we want for Charlottesville. Do we want more tech? But if we're talking about, from my experience, I know that there's a lot of mid-range. I'm going to call them like mid-range companies that, you've got something like 25 employees or 20 to 50 employees, and the main office kind of takes a sort of like 1 to 2 week break to sort of like rebrand, revision, talk about like big long-term projects, and a lot of times they go somewhere to do that where because it can get very intense. You'll have, I mean, my dad used to do this all the time, where it was like you would take a whole day, you'd go from 8 o'clock in the morning to 7 o'clock at night, and you're just talking nothing but business, and you're having arguments over small branding details that really don't make a lot of sense, and then you're like, why are we choosing this word over this word? And having the ability to go out and see a new place and go to a restaurant, and it's all in the business and you're not worried about it, and you can release that tension, is something that corporations do well, in the sense that is a good thing to do, whether or not you're going. But a lot of times they go to Orlando, or they'll go to Miami, or they'll go to if they can't afford those, they'll pick a smaller town. And I think that you do want them to pick Charlottesville because, as I mentioned, you're taking a business, right? They have to take lunch, they have to take dinner, they have to generally eat breakfast. Sometimes they'll do that in the hotel, but those are going to, I mean, that's 20 people that have to find something to do in Charlottesville, and then we'll be like, hey, it's a nice place to visit, I'm going to spend my money here because. And think about it. One of the positive sides is that when it's in a business expense, people feel more free to spend money. Mm-hmm. You can go to they're going to go to South and Central, and they're going to order that 130 ribeye, it was a $130 tomahawk that I saw on the menu yesterday. That was very tempting. But they can do that because the business is going to take care of it. So I think absolutely yes, as long as it's in the context that Friends of Sivo has been talking about, where we talk about increased tourism and an increased a sort of something that can attract new people to the city, to the downtown for a variety of experiences. So I would say yes to that question. Of course, that's just me.
And I mean, I think Charlottesville has so much to offer. People would come on those and then want to come back with their families or for a weekend getaway.
Oh, right, absolutely. And I think that's also a beautiful thing too, because I mean, I don't know. I remember my dad did this, the same thing was my father's experience, but when he went to Carmel, California for the first time, he went without my mother, and he was like, oh, this place is so beautiful. So the next time my dad had a business meeting in California, he took my mom and sort of like, well, the business paid for his flight, but he only had to pay for one flight, so they got kind of like 2 for 1.
Right.
And once the business meetings were over, it was just sort of like you get a chance to tour with your family. And we weren't born at the time, but like he was able to take my mom around, and so I mean, I think that's the thing, is if we can make it a family-friendly, happy place, you're going to get not just families, but couples too. I mean, couples like that. I mean, you want to go to a place where you feel safe and you have experiences together, and you kind of enjoy your time there with a variety of, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't know if anyone has the variety of food experiences we do, even if we don't have the most per capita. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's really inspiring to see the different, cultures that are represented food-wise, at least in Charlottesville.
I need to go on a food tour with you, Nick.
Yeah. Oh, no, absolutely. We just start with the list. Like, use like Guajiros for Cuban, and South and Central for that whole central area. And there's the Inca Peru, and there's just, I love it. Just start with South America, and then we just like gravitate everywhere else. But that's actually all our time. Thank you, Greer, so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for tuning in. I hope that you'll want to get involved with Friends of Charlottesville Downtown.
Yeah, Neil and Kevin, thank you for your questions and your comments. They were, again, as usual, just absolutely on the spot and extremely relevant. Thank you, Neil, for correcting me. And I'm not saying that ironically. I mean it very sincerely. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, Greer, for all you do in the community, especially for Friends of Sivo. And I will, not to forget, thank you to our sponsors, GBS Financial Services, our good friend Johan Torres, Miguel Corradine from Craddock Serious Insurance, Aqua Sivo Hand Car Wash, The Gym Sivo, Castle Hill Cider, Emergent Financial Services, of course, Ford Adelante, the premier Latino business networking event in Charlottesville. And thank you to Judah behind the camera, our director who gave me all the confidence I needed to host today. And Jerry, for all your questions and help. You're the man. And thank you, audience, for watching. That's our show for today. And until next time, hasta mañana.